The massive crystal towers of Nexus Prime once reached toward the stars with pride. Now they lay broken and burning. Black smoke filled the purple sky as another district fell to the enemy. Kang Dae-ho pressed his hand against the cold window of the communication center and watched his world die. "Sir, we are receiving reports from the outer colonies," Park Min-soo said from his station. The young technician's voice shook. "The Devourers have taken the Kilo system. All 12 planets are gone." Kang Dae-ho closed his eyes. 12 billion souls lost in a single day. The Veltari had ruled this part of the galaxy for 50,000 years. They had built cities that floated in space and machines that could move stars. Now they could barely defend their home planet. "How many ships do we have left?" he asked. 43, sir. Most are damaged." 43 ships. Once they had commanded fleets of 10,000 vessels. The Devourers had been eating their way through Veltari space for 3 years now. Every battle was the same. The enemy would arrive in massive biomechanical forms that looked like living metal. They would consume everything, ships, planets, even the stars themselves. Then they would grow stronger and move to the next system. Lee. Sora entered the room. The military strategist looked tired. Her usual neat uniform was wrinkled and stained. "The council has made a decision," she said. "We're going to send out the emergency beacon." Kang Dae-ho turned from the window. "To who? Every civilized species in this sector is either dead or hiding. To everyone. Every frequency, every possible range. If there's intelligent life out there that we don't know about, maybe they can help. Or maybe they'll just learn about us and stay away," Lee Sora said. She sat down heavily in a chair. "Would you come help people who are clearly losing a war?" Park. Min-soo looked up from his console. "Sir, I've prepared the beacon. It contains our language database, our location, and a basic explanation of what we're facing. Should I send it?" Kang Dae-ho thought about the decision. The Veltari had always been proud. They saw themselves as the elder race of the galaxy, the ones who brought order and civilization to younger species. Asking for help felt like admitting they had failed. Another explosion shook the building. Through the window, he could see more towers falling. The Devourers had landed on the surface now. Soon, they would reach the capital city. "Send it," he said. Park Min-soo's fingers moved over the controls. The beacon burst out into space, carrying their desperate message to anyone who might listen. It would take years to reach the far edges of the galaxy, but they were out of time and options. "Now we wait," Kang Dae-ho said. They didn't have to wait long. 2 hours later, Park Min-soo shouted in surprise. "Sir, I'm getting responses." "From where?" "Everywhere. Dozens of species are replying. Most are saying they can't help or they're too far away." Park Min-soo paused, reading his screen. "Wait, there's something strange here." "What is it?" "There's a signal coming from the Sol system. Grid reference 2847 Delta. But sir, we surveyed that system 4,000 years ago. The third planet had primitive life, but nothing that could build spaceships." Lee Sora moved to look over his shoulder. "Let me see that." She read the report. "You're right. Our ancestors classified them as early Bronze Age. They were fighting with metal swords and living in small tribes. There's no way they could have developed space travel so quickly." "What does the message say?" Kang Dae-ho asked. Park Min-soo was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was very soft. "It says, 'We heard you. We're coming.'" "That's impossible," Lee Sora said. 4,000 years is nothing. No species develops that fast." Kang Dae-ho stared at the communication screen. The signal was definitely coming from the Sol system. According to their old records, the third planet was inhabited by a species called humans. The original survey team had described them as violent and unpredictable, but also surprisingly creative. "Sir," Park Min-soo said, "there's more to the message. They're asking for detailed information about the enemy. They want to know about Devourer technology, attack patterns, and weaknesses." "They're probably just curious," Lee Sora said. "When they learn what they're up against, they'll change their minds." But Kang Dae-ho wasn't so sure. Something about the message felt different from the others they had received. It wasn't just offering sympathy or regret. It was asking for tactical information like someone planning to fight. "Send them everything we have," he decided. "Sir?" Lee Sora looked surprised. That's classified military data. We're about to be extinct. Classification doesn't matter anymore. He turned to Park Min-soo. Send them our complete files on the Devourers. Include battle recordings, technical scans, everything. Park Min-soo worked quickly. The data packet was enormous. Thousands of years of accumulated knowledge about their enemy. It would take days to transmit through normal space communication. Sent, sir. Another message came back almost immediately. This time it was longer. Thank you for the information. We are analyzing your data now. Our fleet will arrive in your system in 37 days. Until then, avoid direct confrontation if possible. Try to preserve as many ships and people as you can. We have been preparing for this fight for a very long time. Lee Sora shook her head. Preparing for this fight? How could they know about the Devourers? We only discovered them 3 years ago. Maybe they've faced them before, Kang Dae-ho suggested. Impossible. If the humans had that kind of technology 4,000 years ago, they would have contacted us then. And if they developed it recently, they wouldn't know about galaxy-wide threats. The building shook again as more Devourer forces landed in the city. They were running out of time to debate the mystery. Kang Dae-ho made a decision that would change everything. Park Min-soo, send a reply. Tell them we'll try to hold out until they arrive. Ask them what they need from us. The response came faster than should have been possible across interstellar distances. Stay alive. When we arrive, be ready to fight. Alongside us. This ends now. Lee So-ra was studying her tactical display. Sir, our remaining ships are reporting something strange. The Devourer advance has slowed down. They're not pressing their attack as hard as before. Maybe they're regrouping, Kang Dae-ho said. Or maybe they intercepted our communications with the humans, Park Min-soo suggested. Maybe they're being more careful now. The idea sent a chill through the room. If the Devourers knew about the humans coming, what would they do? Would they rush to finish destroying the Veltari before help arrived? Or would they prepare for a new enemy? Sir, Park Min-soo said quietly, I've been thinking about those old survey reports. Do you want to know what our ancestors really said about the humans? Tell me. They said humans were the most dangerous species they had ever encountered, not because they were strong or smart, but because they never gave up. The survey team watched them fight wars where they were completely outnumbered and somehow find ways to win. Lee So-ra looked skeptical. Ancient reports from primitive observers. It probably wasn't accurate. There's something else, Park Min-soo continued. The survey team recommended that humanity be quarantined. They said the species showed unprecedented potential for both creation and destruction, and that contact should be avoided until they could be properly studied. 4,000 years of development, Kang Dae-ho mused. What could a species like that become in 4,000 years? Through the window, he could see Devourer machines moving through the ruined city. They looked like giant metal insects, tearing apart buildings and consuming everything useful. Soon they would reach the communication center, but for the first time in months, Kang Dae-ho felt something other than despair. Somewhere in the darkness of space, help was coming. Help from a species that his people had dismissed as primitives 4,000 years ago. 37 days, he said to himself. We just have to survive 37 days. Outside, the Devourers continued their steady advance, but something had changed. The galaxy's most desperate cry for help had been answered by the one species no one expected. The humans were coming. Kim Jae-wook had always loved the old archives. Even as a child, he preferred dusty data crystals to playing outside. Now, as the Veltari's senior historian, he spent his days deep underground in the protected vaults beneath the capital. The Devourers could destroy the surface, but the archives went down for miles. He was looking for everything the Veltari had ever recorded about humans. If help was really coming from the Sol system, he needed to know what they were dealing with. Katur. First files were 4,000 years old. A survey ship called the Eternal Wisdom had been exploring the outer edges of the galaxy when they detected radio signals from a small yellow star. Captain Nelvan had decided to investigate. Kim Jae-wook read the captain's report with growing interest. The third planet shows clear signs of intelligent life. The beings call themselves humans. They appear to be bipedal mammals with excellent manual dexterity. Their technology level is approximately Bronze Age, but they show remarkable innovation for such a primitive species. The next entry was more detailed. We have observed human behavior for 30 days. They are constantly fighting each other, but not in the simple territorial way we see in most primitive species. Their wars are complex, involving strategy, deception, and long-term planning. They create weapons and tactics we have never seen before. Kim Jae-wook pulled up the attached video files. The images were grainy, taken from orbit, but they showed human cities and battlefields. He watched armies clash with bronze swords and wooden shields. The humans did fight a lot, but there was something organized about it. Even in ancient times, they seemed to understand complex military ideas. Personal note from Chief Observer Cardin. The next file began. I am troubled by what we have seen here. These humans adapt to new situations faster than any species in our database. When we changed our observation position, several of their astronomers noticed the difference in their star charts within days. They are actively looking for things that don't belong. That was interesting. Most primitive species never noticed when advanced civilizations watched them from space. The final report was from the ship's science officer. Recommendation: immediate. Quarantine of the Sol system. The human species shows unprecedented potential for both creation and destruction. In 30 days of observation, we have recorded 17 new innovations in warfare, agriculture, and tool-making. This rate of development is dangerous. If they achieve space travel, they could become a significant threat to galactic stability. Kim Jae-wook sat back in his chair. The ancient Veltari had been afraid of primitive humans. What would they think of humans with 4,000 years of development? He called up another file. This one was from 1,000 years later, when the Veltari had briefly intercepted radio transmissions from Earth. The humans have developed electromagnetic communication. Analysis of their broadcasts shows they have discovered electricity, chemistry, and basic physics. Their rate of progress appears to be accelerating. Another file from 1,000 years after that. Human radio signals now include what appears to be entertainment programming and news broadcasts. They have split the atom and achieved powered flight. Their development continues at an alarming rate. The most recent file was only a few hundred years old. Long-range sensors detect human spacecraft in their local system. They have developed rocket technology and primitive computers. At their current rate of progress, they will achieve faster-than-light travel within 500 years. Kim Jae-wook realized he needed to talk to someone about this. He sealed the archive and took the elevator to the military intelligence level. He found Choi Yu-jin at her desk, surrounded by tactical displays showing devourer movements. I need to show you something, he said. Choi Yu-jin looked tired. She had been working, without sleep for days, trying to find some weakness in the enemy's attack patterns. Can it wait? We're trying to figure out how to keep them busy for 37 days. It's about the humans. I think we need to understand what's coming to help us. She sighed and turned away from her displays. Show me. Kim Jae-wook shared the ancient files. Choi Yu-jin read them quickly, her expression growing more serious with each report. This doesn't make sense, she said. If they were this dangerous 4,000 years ago, why didn't we make contact? Why didn't we try to guide their development or at least monitor them closely? Look at the dates, Kim Jae-wook pointed out. This was during the Great Expansion. We were busy conquering half the galaxy. A single primitive planet probably seemed unimportant. But they were clearly not ordinary primitives. Kim Jae-wook called up another file. Look at this. It's a psychological profile from the original survey. Choi Yu-jin read aloud. Humans show unusual persistence in the face of impossible odds. In one observed battle, a human army continued fighting even after losing 70% of their forces. They did not retreat or surrender. Instead, they changed their tactics and eventually won. That's not normal behavior. There's more, Kim Jae-wook said. Humans appear to view challenges as opportunities for growth, rather than obstacles to avoid. When faced with a problem they cannot solve, they do not accept defeat. Instead, they find new ways to approach the problem until they succeed. They sat in silence for a moment, thinking about what this meant. Choi Yu-jin, Kim Jae-wook said slowly, what would a species like that become after 4,000 years of development? Before she could answer, Captain Yoon Tae-min burst into the room. The fleet commander looked excited and frightened at the same time. We have a problem, he said. Long-range sensors are picking up something in space, something big. Devourers? Choi Yu-jin asked. No. These signatures are different, and they're coming from the direction of the Sol system. Kim Jae-wook felt his blood turn cold. How big? Bigger than anything in our database. The energy signatures don't match any known technology. Whatever the humans are flying, it's completely new. Choi Yu-jin was already pulling up her tactical displays. How many ships? That's the problem. We can't tell. The signals are interfering. With our sensors somehow, it could be one massive ship or 1,000 smaller ones. All we know is that something very large and very fast is heading our way. Kim Jae-wook thought about the ancient reports. Humans who never gave up. Humans who saw challenges as opportunities. Humans who developed new solutions faster than any known species. What if we were wrong? He said quietly. Wrong about what? Yoon Tae-min asked. What if they didn't develop space travel in 4,000 years? What if they've had it much longer, and we just didn't know? Choi Yu-jin was studying the sensor data. These energy patterns, I've never seen anything like them. It's almost like they're bending space itself. How long until they arrive? Kim Jae-wook asked. At their current speed? 18 hours. 18 hours? They said 37 days. Yoon Tae-min shook his head. Either they were wrong about their travel time, or they found a way to go faster. Kim Jae-wook remembered another line from the ancient reports. Human innovation appears to be accelerating. They find new solutions to problems faster than we can analyze their old solutions. We need to contact them, Choi Yu-jin said. Find out what they're planning. But when they tried to send a message, something strange happened. Before they could even finish transmitting, a reply came back. We know you are trying to contact us. Do not worry. We are not the enemy you have been fighting. Prepare your remaining ships for joint operations. When we arrive, the real battle begins. How did they know we were sending a message before we finished sending it? Yoon Tae-min asked. Kim Jae-wook was beginning to understand. What if they've been watching us this whole time? What if they've been monitoring our communications since we first sent the distress call? That would require technology far beyond anything we have, Choi Yu-jin said. 4,000 years, Kim Jae-wook repeated. 4,000 years of human development, starting from a species that our ancestors thought was too dangerous to contact. Through the reinforced windows of the intelligence center, they could see the ruined city above. The Devourers had stopped their advance. Their massive, biomechanical forms stood motionless in the streets, as if they were waiting for something. The Devourers have stopped moving, Yoon Tae-min observed. Maybe they know something we don't, Choi Yu-jin said. Kim Jae-wook felt a chill of understanding. What if the Devourers have encountered humans before? What if that's why they stopped? The idea was terrifying and hopeful at the same time. If the humans had fought the Devourers before, they might know how to beat them. But it also meant the galaxy had been in danger for much longer than anyone realized. 18 hours, Yoon Tae-min said again. Then we find out what 4,000 years of human development really means. Kim Jae-wook closed the ancient files. Soon they would meet the descendants of the species their ancestors had feared to contact. He hoped the old Veltari had been wrong about humans being dangerous. But deep down, he suspected they had been exactly right. The first sign was a ripple in space itself. Kang De-ho watched from the observation deck as reality seemed to bend near the edge of their solar system. The stars twisted and stretched like someone was pulling them through water. Then, with a flash of light that briefly outshone their sun, the human fleet appeared. By the ancient gods, whispered Park Min-soo. The ships were like nothing in any Veltari database. They were sleek and dark, shaped like elongated teardrops that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The largest vessel was bigger than their greatest city, but it moved through space with impossible grace. Smaller ships surrounded it, in perfect formation, each one different in design but clearly built by the same hands. How many ships? Kang De-ho asked. Captain Yoon Tae-min was staring at his instruments in confusion. I can't tell, sir. My sensors keep giving different readings. Sometimes it looks like 50 ships, sometimes 500. Sensor malfunction? No, sir. The sensors are working fine. The ships themselves seem to be shifting somehow. Lee Sora joined them at the observation window. Her face was pale. Our entire remaining fleet just received the same message. All ships are to hold position and prepare for joint operations. No aggressive actions unless directly ordered. They're giving us orders? Kang Dae-ho asked. Not giving. Requesting. But the message was sent on our own military command frequency. They knew our codes. A new voice filled the communication center. It spoke perfect Veltari, but with an accent none of them recognized. Nexus Prime Command, this is Fleet Admiral Song Byung-ho of the Human Defense Force. We are here to assist you against the Devourer threat. Request permission to establish orbit and begin tactical planning. Kang Dae-ho looked around the room. Everyone was staring at him, waiting for his decision. They were so desperate that they would accept help from anyone, but this felt different. The humans weren't asking to help. They were announcing that they would help. Permission granted, Admiral Song. Welcome to Nexus Prime. Thank you. We are deploying diplomatic vessels to your surface. Please prepare to receive our contact team. 3 ships detached from the main fleet. They were smaller than the others, but they moved faster than anything the Veltari had ever built. Within minutes, they were entering the atmosphere. Sir, Park Min-soo said nervously, should we scramble our defense fighters? No, Kang Dae-ho decided. If they wanted to attack us, we couldn't stop them anyway. Let them land. The human ships touched down in the main spaceport with barely a sound. They were beautiful machines, all curves and flowing lines that seemed to blend technology with art. When the doors opened, 3 figures stepped out. The humans looked almost exactly like the ancient survey reports had described. 2 arms, 2 legs, bilateral symmetry. But there was something different about them that was hard to define. They moved with confidence and purpose, like people who had never known defeat. The leader was a woman with short, dark hair and intelligent eyes. She wore a uniform that looked both practical and elegant. Behind her came a man in similar clothing and a third human carrying what looked like advanced scanning equipment. I am Nam Hye-won, diplomatic liaison for the Human Defense Force, the woman said as they approached. Her Veltari was perfect, better than some natives spoke it. This is Dr. Oh Sung-jae, our chief engineer, and Commander Bae Soo-jin of our A Tactical Division. Kang Dae-ho stepped forward. I am Senior Communications Officer Kang Dae-ho. Welcome to Nexus Prime, though I wish we were meeting under better circumstances. Nam Hye-won smiled. It was a warm expression that seemed genuine. All meetings between our species have been under difficult circumstances. This time, we hope to change that. All meetings? This is our first contact. Not exactly, Dr. Oh Sung-jae said. He was a younger man with kind eyes and careful hands. We've been aware of your people for quite some time. Your ancestors visited our world 4,000 years ago. Lee Sora stepped forward. Those were observation missions. There was no actual contact. True, Nam Hye-won agreed. But we knew you were there. We've been hoping for a chance to meet properly ever since. Commander Bae Soo-jin was looking around the spaceport with professional interest. Your defensive positions are well placed, but you're spread too thin. The Devourers will concentrate their attack on the weakest points. You know about Devourer tactics? Captain Yoon Tai-min asked. We know about many things, Nam Hye-won said. Perhaps we should continue this conversation somewhere more private? They moved to a secure conference room in the spaceport's administrative building. Once the doors were sealed, Nam Hye-won activated a small device that made the air shimmer. Around them. Privacy field, she explained. Now we can speak freely. First question, Lee Sora said bluntly. How did you develop faster-than-light travel so quickly? 4,000 years ago, you were using bronze tools. We've always been quick learners, Dr. Oh Seung-jae said with another smile. But you're right, that our development was unusually fast. We had help. Help from who? From you. Your ancestors left behind some very useful technology when they visited our world. Kang Dae-ho felt confused. Our survey teams had strict non-interference protocols. They wouldn't have left anything behind. Not intentionally, Nam Hye-won agreed, but small accidents happen. A broken scanner here, a damaged probe there. Enough pieces for clever people to figure out how they worked. You reverse-engineered. Our technology? We improved it. Commander Bei Su-jin said proudly. Your designs were elegant, but they had limitations. We found ways around those limitations. Dr. Oh Sung-jae was examining the Veltari equipment in the room. Your quantum processors are remarkable, very stable, very reliable. But they're not very creative. Our systems are more flexible. What do you mean? Park Min-soo asked. Watch. Dr. Oh Sung-jae touched a control pad on his wrist. Suddenly, the room's lighting changed color. The air conditioning adjusted itself, and the communication screens began displaying new information. Your machines do exactly what they're programmed to do. Ours learn and adapt. That's not possible, Lee So-ra said. Adaptive artificial intelligence is theoretical at best. The processing power required would be enormous. For your approach, yes, Nam Hai-wan said. But we found a different way. We don't try to make machines think like us. We make them think with us. Before anyone could ask what that meant, alarms began sounding throughout the spaceport. What's happening? Kang Dae-ho asked. Captain Yoon Tae-min was checking his personal communicator. Long-range sensors are detecting a massive devourer fleet approaching the system. Bigger than anything we've seen before? They'll be here in 6 hours. Commander Bei Su-jin didn't look worried. Good. We were hoping they would show up quickly. Good? Lee So-ra stared at her. That fleet could destroy this entire system. Only if we let them. Nam Hee-won was speaking into her own communicator, using a language that sounded like Korean, but with words the Veltari translation system couldn't handle. Admiral Song, confirmed Devourer approach. Begin Phase 1 deployment. Through the conference room's windows, they could see the human fleet beginning to move. The ships spread out across the system in a pattern that looked random, but felt purposeful. What's Phase 1? Kang Dae-ho asked. Preparation, Dr. Oh Sung-jae said. He was still examining Veltari technology, but now his scans were more intensive. We need to understand exactly what we're facing before we can develop countermeasures. You haven't fought Devourers before? Not these Devourers, Nam Hai-wan said carefully. But we've fought similar enemies. The principles are the same. What? Principles? Commander Bei Su-jin looked up from her tactical display. Every enemy has weaknesses. Every system can be broken. Every problem has a solution. You just have to find the right approach. The alarms were getting louder. Reports were coming in from across the system as the Devourer fleet grew closer. The biomechanical ships were enormous, each one the size of a small moon. They moved through space like living things, pulsing with dark energy. How do you fight something like that? Park Min-soo whispered. Carefully, Nam Hai-wan said. But we fight. Dr. Oh Sung-jae finished his scans and frowned. Commander Bei, you need to see this. She looked at his display. Interesting. The Devourer technology contains components from at least 12 different species. Some of these designs are very familiar. Familiar how? Lee So-ra asked. We've seen this technology before. Not these exact designs, but similar ones. The Devourers aren't just consuming your people, they're learning from them. Nam Hye-won nodded grimly. That changes things. Admiral Song needs to know about this immediately. As she spoke into her communicator again, Kang Dae-ho realized something that made his blood run cold. If they learn from every species they consume, he said slowly, and they've been doing this for thousands of years, then they know everything about galactic civilization, Commander Bei Su-jin finished. Every technology, every tactic, every weakness. Except one, Nam Hye-won said, with a smile that was both confident and slightly frightening. They've never consumed humans before. Outside, the Devourer fleet continued its approach. Soon, the real battle would begin. But for the first time, since the invasion started, the defenders had hope. The humans had come to fight. The Devourer fleet arrived like a nightmare made real. Each biomechanical ship was the size of a small moon, covered in metal that seemed to pulse with its own dark life. They moved through space in formations that hurt to look at directly, as if the patterns themselves were wrong somehow. When Lim Dong-hyuk saw them on his tactical display, he understood why entire civilizations had fallen to these creatures. Fascinating, he said calmly. Commander Bei Su-jin looked at him in surprise. Fascinating? Those things are about to try to kill us all. Yes, but look at how they move. They're not just random biomachines. There's intelligence there, organization. They're thinking creatures, which means they can make mistakes. Lim Dong-hyuk was the human fleet's chief tactical specialist. He had spent 40 years studying warfare in all its forms, from ancient Earth battles to theoretical space combat. To him, every enemy was simply a puzzle waiting to be solved. "Admiral Song," he said into his communicator, requesting permission to begin combat analysis. "Permission granted," came the reply. "All ships, implement Protocol 7. Let's see what these things can do." Across the system, human ships began moving in ways that seemed to break the laws of physics. They accelerated without visible engines, turned in directions that should have been impossible, and occasionally seemed to simply disappear and reappear somewhere else. The Devourers responded immediately. Their biomechanical forms shifted and flowed, growing new weapons and defense systems in real time. Energy beams lanced out across space, missing the human ships by impossibly small margins. "They're adapting," reported An Ji-won from her station, aboard the Veltari flagship. The quantum physicist was watching the battle with instruments that could barely track what was happening. "The Devourers are analyzing human movement patterns and adjusting their targeting systems." "Of course they are," Lim Dong-hyuk said. "That's what they do, but watch what happens next." The human ships suddenly changed their entire approach. Instead of dodging the Devourer weapons, they began absorbing them. The dark energy beams that should have destroyed the human vessels instead seemed to make them stronger. "How is that possible?" Captain Yoon Taiman asked from the Veltari Command Center. "We learned from studying your technology," Commander Bae Soo-jin explained. "Your energy shields don't just deflect incoming power, they redirect it. We took that concept and improved it." "But those are Devourer weapons. You've never seen them." "Before. Energy is energy," Lim Dong-hyuk said. "The source doesn't matter as much as understanding the principles involved." The Devourers seemed confused by this development. They increased their attack intensity, pouring more power into their weapons. The human ships continued to absorb everything thrown at them, growing brighter and faster with each impact. "Sir," Park Min-soo called from his monitoring station, "the Devourers are changing tactics. They're pulling back and doing something to themselves." On the main display, the biomechanical ships were undergoing rapid transformation. New structures grew from their hulls, weapon systems reconfigured themselves, and entire sections seemed to melt and reform into different shapes. "They're adapting faster than we anticipated," An Ji-won observed. "Those changes should take hours or days, not minutes." "They've done this before," Lim Dong-hyuk realized. "This isn't their first encounter with technology absorption. They've fought enemies who could turn their own weapons against them." "What does that mean?" Kang Dae-ho asked. "It means we're not the first species to try this approach, and it means they learned how to counter it." The transformed Devourer ships began their second attack. This time, their weapons were different. Not energy beams, but something that seemed to twist space itself. When the distortions hit the human ships, the absorption effect stopped working. "Shields down to 60%. Reported one of the human captains. "Whatever they're using now, we can't redirect it." "Understood." Admiral Song's voice came over the communication channel. "All ships, implement Protocol 12. Time for Plan B." "What's Plan B?" Commander Bae Soo-jin asked. Lim Dong-hyuk smiled. "We stopped playing defense." The human fleet suddenly split into dozens of smaller groups, each moving in a different direction. Some ships headed directly toward the Devourer. "Fleet!" Others began wide circular patterns, and a few simply vanished from all sensors. "Where did they go?" Lee Sora demanded. "Nowhere," Lim Dong-hyuk said. "They're still there. You just can't see them because they're not reflecting any electromagnetic radiation. It's a stealth technology we developed based on studying how your people bend light around your observation posts." The Devourers were firing in all directions now, trying to hit targets they couldn't see. Their biomechanical forms writhed and shifted as new sensor systems grew from their hulls. But every time they adapted to detect one type of stealth technology, the human ships switched to a different method. "This is incredible," An Ji-won breathed. "They're staying ahead of the adaptation cycle. Every time the Devourers evolve a countermeasure, the humans change their approach completely." "How many different technologies do you have?" Captain Yoon Tae-min asked. "Enough," Lim Dong-hyuk said simply. 4,000 years is a long time to prepare for a fight. The real shock came when the human ships that had vanished earlier suddenly reappeared. Inside the Devourer formation, they had somehow moved through space without triggering any detection systems, materializing in the perfect position to attack the biomechanical giants from within their own defensive lines. Teleportation? Kang Daeho asked in amazement. Not exactly, Commander Bei Sujin said. More like taking a shortcut through dimensions we don't normally use. The close-range battle was unlike anything the Veltari had ever seen. Human ships danced between the massive Devourer forms, striking with weapons that seemed to cut through the biomechanical armor like it was paper. But the most shocking thing was what happened when the weapons hit. Instead of simply destroying the Devourer components, the human attacks seemed to separate them. Pieces of different technologies began breaking away from the biomechanical hulls, revealing the horrifying truth of what the Devourers really were. By the ancestors, Park Min-soo whispered. Those aren't just ships. They're graveyards. Each Devourer vessel contained the remains of dozens of different spacecraft, all fused together into a single nightmarish whole. As the human weapons worked, the individual components began to separate and drift apart. Some of the technology was recognizably Veltari. Other pieces came from species none of them had ever seen. How many civilizations have they consumed? An Ji-won asked in horror. Hundreds! Dr. Oh Sung-jai's voice came over the communication channel. He was aboard one of the human ships, analyzing the separated components in real time. Maybe thousands. Some of this technology is incredibly ancient. They've been doing this for a very long time. But that's not the worst part, Lim Dong-hyuk said grimly. Look at the pattern of how they've arranged the different technologies. It's not random. They're not just consuming these civilizations. They're studying them, learning from them, building themselves into the perfect predator for each new species they encounter. The implications hit everyone at once. The Devourers weren't just mindless destroyers. They were intelligent hunters who learned from every victory, becoming stronger and more dangerous with each civilization they consumed. How do you fight something that learns from everyone it defeats? Lee Sora asked. By being something it's never fought before, Commander Bei Sujin said. Which brings us to the real reason we're here. What do you mean? Lim Dong-hyuk was studying his tactical displays with satisfaction. The first phase of the battle was going exactly as planned. The Devourers have been hunting our species for thousands of years. Every time we made contact with galactic civilization, they found us and tried to destroy us before we could develop too far. That's impossible, Kang Daeho said. You've been isolated on your home planet. Have we? Nam Hyewan's voice joined the conversation. Think about it. Why do you think so many of our early space missions failed? Why did our deep space probes keep disappearing? Why did every attempt to establish colonies outside our solar system end in disaster? The truth was staggering. They've been hunting you! For thousands of years, every time we tried to expand into space, the Devourers would appear and force us back to Earth. They kept us trapped, waiting for the right moment to finish us off. But that would mean An Ji-won's voice trailed off as she understood. Yes, Lim Dong-hyuk confirmed. Your distress call wasn't intercepted by accident. The Devourers redirected it to us. They wanted us to come here. It's a trap, Captain Yoon Taemin said. Of course it's a trap, Commander Bei Sujin said cheerfully. But the question is, who's really caught in it? On the tactical display, more human ships were appearing throughout the system. Not dozens, but hundreds. Then thousands. The small fleet that had first arrived was just the advance guard. Where did they all come from? Park Min-soo asked in wonder. We've been building and preparing for a very long time, Admiral Song's voice said over the communication channel. The Devourers wanted to draw us out into a final battle. We're happy to oblige them. But why now? Why not wait until you were even stronger? Lim Dong-hyuk's smile was cold and determined. Because this isn't about Commander Kwon Hyun-woo had studied every war in human history. From the ancient battles of Earth to theoretical conflicts between spacefaring civilizations, he understood one fundamental truth. The side that chooses when and where to fight usually wins. All ships implement Total War Protocol, he announced from the bridge of the human flagship. Target every devourer position simultaneously. SEO Eunmi, the cultural liaison working with the Veltari, saw the shock on their faces. When the translation came through, "Total war?" Kang Dae-ho asked. "What does that mean?" "It means we don't just fight to survive," Seo Eunmi explained. "We fight to win completely. No partial victories, no temporary ceasefires, no negotiated surrenders. Either they're all destroyed, or we are." Lee Sora looked horrified. That's not how civilized species conduct warfare. There are rules, protocols, ways to limit the damage. "Those rules work when you're fighting other civilized species," Commander Kwan said over the communication link. "The Devourers don't follow any rules except consume everything, so we don't follow any rules except destroy them completely." Across the galaxy, human fleets that had been hidden for centuries began moving toward Devourer positions. The battle at Nexus Prime wasn't the only fight happening. It was one front in a war that was taking place across dozens of star systems simultaneously. "How is this possible?" Captain Yoon Taemin asked. "How did you know where all their bases were?" "We've been watching them for a long time," Jang Woo-seok reported from his infiltration ship. "Every time they forced us back to Earth, we learned something new about them. We've been mapping their territory and studying their behavior for thousands of years." Jang Woo-seok led the human special operations forces. While the main fleets fought in space, his teams were doing something that should have been impossible. They were boarding Devourer bioships. "The internal structure is fascinating," he reported as his team moved through the living corridors of a captured Devourer vessel. "It's not just technology fused together randomly. There's a pattern to it." "What kind of pattern?" Dr. Oh Sung-jae asked from his analysis station. "They're not just consuming civilizations for resources. They're creating a library. Every species they've destroyed, every technology they've absorbed, it's all cataloged and stored in these bioships." Choi Yu-jin was monitoring the special operations from the Veltari Command Center. "A library of what?" "Everything," Jang Woo-seok said grimly. "Art, science, history, technology, even genetic samples. The Devourers aren't just destroying civilizations. They're preserving them." The revelation sent a chill through everyone listening. It was one thing to fight a mindless enemy that simply consumed everything in its path. It was something else entirely to fight an enemy that was systematically cataloging and preserving the knowledge of every species it destroyed. "Why would they do that?" An Ji-won asked. "Because they're not the real enemy," Commander Kwan said. "They're collectors, gatherers. They work for something else." "Something else?" "We're about to find out." "Jang Woo-seok, have you reached the Central Core?" "Approaching now, sir. The security is strange. It's like they want us to get this far." Jang Woo-seok and his team had fought their way to the center of the largest Devourer bioship. The defenses had been fierce, but not impossible to overcome. It felt almost like they were being tested rather than truly opposed. The central core was unlike anything they had expected. Instead of more biomechanical horror, they found a chamber that looked almost like a temple. At its center stood a crystalline structure that pulsed with soft light. "Sir," Jang Woo-seok whispered into his communicator, "I think you need to see this." The image he transmitted back to the command ships showed something that changed everything they thought they knew about the conflict. The crystal wasn't just a storage device, it was a communication array, and it was active. "It's receiving signals from outside the galaxy," Dr. Oh Sung-jae reported after analyzing the data. "Multiple sources, all very distant. The Devourers are reporting to someone. Who? Unknown. But based on the signal patterns, whoever it is has been directing Devourer operations for a very long time, maybe millions of years." Commander Kwan processed this information quickly. "So, the Devourers are scouts. They're mapping and cataloging the galaxy for someone else. But why preserve the civilizations they destroy?" Seo Eunmi asked. "Why not just take resources and move on?" "Because knowledge is the most valuable resource," Choi Yu-jin realized. "Whoever is directing the Devourers wants to know everything about galactic civilization before they arrive." "Arrive?" Kang Dae-ho's voice was very quiet. "You mean this is all preparation for an invasion?" "Not invasion," Commander Kwan corrected. "Evaluation. They're deciding whether this galaxy is worth conquering or whether it should just be sterilized. and used for raw materials. The battle around them continued to rage, but now it had a different meaning. They weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for the right of their entire galaxy to exist. "Jiang Wu Seok," Commander Quan ordered. "Can you access the communication system?" "Working on it, sir. The encryption is incredibly complex, but our AI systems are making progress." "AI systems?" Lee Sora asked. "You have artificial intelligence?" "We have something better," Seo Unmi said. "We have augmented intelligence. Our computers don't think for us, they think with us. It's the difference between having a tool and having a partner." The breakthrough came suddenly. Jiang Wuxiok's team managed to crack the Devourer communication network and access their databases. What they found was both terrifying and hopeful. "Sir, I'm reading reports from Devourer operations across the entire galaxy. They've been active for over 2 million years. Hundreds of thousands of civilizations have been cataloged and preserved." Preserved how? Complete records, genetic samples, cultural databases, technological specifications, everything needed to recreate each species exactly as they were. Commander Quan understood immediately. They're not just scouts. They're archaeologists. They're preserving galactic civilization so their masters can study it later. But why destroy the originals, if you're going to preserve them? Because the originals might fight back, Choi Yu-jin said with growing understanding. It's easier to study a dead civilization than a living one. Not this time, Admiral Song's voice cut through the communication channel. "All fleets report. Successful engagement of Devourer forces. We're not just winning, we're routing them." The tactical displays showed the truth of his words. Across dozens of star systems, human fleets were systematically destroying Devourer bioships. The aliens' adaptation abilities were impressive, but they couldn't keep up with human innovation. "How are you doing this?" Captain Yoon Tae-min asked. "How are you staying ahead of their adaptation cycle?" "Because we're not fighting the same war they are," Commander Quan explained. "They're trying to adapt to our technology. We're not using technology to fight them." "What are you using?" "Strategy, creativity, the one thing that can't be cataloged or preserved, the human ability to find new solutions to impossible problems." Jiang Wuseok's voice came over the communication system again. "Sir, I found something else. The communication array isn't just receiving reports, it's sending them. The Devourers have been transmitting data about humanity for the past 4,000 years. "What kind of data?" "Everything they could observe about us. Our technology, our tactics, our psychology. They've been studying us just like they studied every other species. And whoever they're reporting to has been sending back instructions. Sir, the Devourers were ordered to contain humanity until a final evaluation could be made." Commander Quan felt a cold certainty settle in his mind. "What was the result of that evaluation?" "The signal came through just before we arrived here, sir. Humanity has been classified as a Class 7 extinction threat. Their masters are coming to sterilize our entire region of the galaxy." "When?" "The signal indicates they'll arrive in approximately 1 year. Silence filled the communication channels as everyone processed this information. They had won the battle against the Devourers. But it was only the first round of a much larger conflict. "Sir," Seo Eunmi said quietly, "what do we do now?" "Commander." Quan's answer was immediate and certain. "Now we do what humans do best. We prepare for the impossible and find a way to win anyway." "How do you fight something that's been studying you for thousands of years?" "By becoming something they've never seen before," he said. "We have 1 year to unite this galaxy and prepare for a war unlike anything in galactic history." "Can it be done?" Commander Quan looked at the tactical displays showing human and Veltari ships working together to finish off the last Devourer forces. "Ask me in a year." The real war was coming. 1 year later, the galaxy waited. Admiral Song Byung-ho stood on the bridge of the combined fleet's flagship, watching the long-range sensors for the first signs of the enemy's arrival. Around him, representatives from 47 different species worked together at stations that mixed human and alien technology in ways that should have been impossible. "Any moment now," reported Im Hai-rin from her position at the quantum engineering station. The young woman had spent the past year developing technology that even she didn't fully understand. "The dimensional resonance patterns are building toward the critical point." Kang Dae-ho, now serving as the fleet's senior communications coordinator, was monitoring signals from across the galaxy. All defensive positions report ready. Every inhabited system has been evacuated to the fallback positions. It had been an incredible year. The destruction of the Devourer fleets had freed dozens of civilizations that had been hiding in fear for centuries. Some, like the Veltari, had been fighting a losing war. Others had never known the Devourers existed, but had always wondered why the galaxy seemed so empty. The Zephyrians have completed their gravity well generators, reported Captain Yoon Tae-min, who now commanded a mixed squadron of human and Veltari ships. The Corvan defense grids are online. Even the Whisper Folk have emerged from their hidden dimensions to help. The Whisper Folk had been the most surprising discovery. An entire civilization that had learned to exist between dimensions, hiding from the Devourers for millions of years. When the humans proved that the biomechanical scouts could be defeated, the Whisper Folk had shared knowledge that changed everything. "Contact in 30 seconds, Im Hae-rin announced. What appeared at the edge of the galaxy was beyond anyone's worst nightmares. The enemy ships weren't biomechanical like the Devourers. They were pure geometry made manifest, impossible angles and surfaces that hurt to look at directly. Each vessel was the size of a solar system, moving through space in ways that ignored basic physics. "By the ancestors," whispered Park Min-soo, who was now working directly with human sensor specialists. "How many ships are there?" "Too many to count," Admiral Song replied calmly. "But not too many to fight. The enemy fleet spread across space like a disease, blotting out stars and bending reality around itself. At its center was something that defied description. A structure so vast and complex that it seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. That's their command ship," Dr. Oh Sung-jae reported from his analysis station. "It's not just a vessel. It's a living space containing an entire civilization. They brought their entire society with them." "How many beings are we facing?" Lee Sora asked. She now served as tactical coordinator for the Defensive Alliance. "Conservative estimate? Several trillion," Oh Sung-jae said. "They've turned warfare into an industrial process. All ships," Admiral Song announced to the combined fleet, "commence Operation Homecoming." Im Hae-rin activated the quantum cascade device she had been building for the past year. It was based on technology reverse-engineered from the Devourer, bioships, but improved with innovations from every species in the Alliance. "What exactly does this weapon do?" Choi Yu-jin asked from her position aboard the Veltari command ship. "It doesn't destroy them," Im Hae-rin explained as she worked. "It reminds them." The device activated with a pulse that seemed to travel through dimensions rather than space. When it reached the enemy fleet, something impossible happened. The massive geometric ships began to change, breaking apart and reforming into smaller, more familiar shapes. "It's working," Dr. Oh Sung-jae said in amazement. "The cascade is reversing their assimilation process. What they were witnessing was the undoing of millions of years of conquest. The enemy civilization had grown by absorbing and integrating every species they encountered, becoming a vast collective that had forgotten its own origins. The quantum cascade was separating all those absorbed civilizations and returning them to their original forms. "Look at the scanner readings," An Ji-won called out from her physics station. "Those aren't enemy ships anymore. They're the original vessels of every species they ever conquered." Thousands of different ship designs were emerging from the dissolving geometric forms. Some were ancient beyond imagination, others were from civilizations that had existed long before the Veltari. All of them had been trapped inside the enemy collective for eons. "How is this possible?" Captain Yoon Tae-min asked. "Because consciousness can't be truly destroyed," Im Hae-rin explained. "It can be suppressed, absorbed, integrated, but the original patterns always remain. We're just giving them back their individual identities." The massive central structure was changing too. As more and more absorbed civilizations separated from the collective, the controlling intelligence at its heart grew smaller and weaker. What had once been an unstoppable galactic empire was revealing itself to be a parasitic entity that had grown by stealing the achievements of others. "Admiral," Kang Dae-ho reported, "we're receiving communication attempts from the separated fleets. They're confused, but they don't seem hostile." "Put them through," Admiral Song ordered. The communication channels filled with dozens of different languages as the freed civilizations tried to understand what had happened to them. Some remembered being absorbed into the collective millions of years ago. Others had been integrated so long ago that they had no memory of their original existence. "We're reading massive power fluctuations from the central structure," Seo Yunmi reported from her sensor station. "Whatever's left of the original enemy is trying to reassert control." "It won't work," Im Hei-rin said confidently. "The cascade effect is self-sustaining now. Every consciousness that breaks free makes it easier for others to follow." They watched as the last remnants of the enemy collective tried desperately to hold on to their absorbed civilizations. But the damage was done. The quantum cascade had reminded every assimilated species of who they used to be, and none of them wanted to return to being part of a collective consciousness. Final separation in 3, 2, 1. The central structure imploded with a flash of light that could be seen across the galaxy. When it faded, space was filled with thousands of different fleets, each representing a civilization that had been enslaved for eons. "It's over," Admiral Song announced to the Alliance fleet. "The threat is ended." But Kang Dae-ho was reading something on his communication board that puzzled him. "Sir, I'm receiving a priority message from Earth. It's from the human government." "What does it say?" Kang Dae-ho read the message aloud. "Congratulations on the successful completion of Project Liberation. Phase 2 authorization granted. Begin galactic reconstruction immediately." "Phase 2? Lee Sora asked. "This was all planned?" Admiral Song smiled. "The defeat of the enemy collective was always just the beginning. Now comes the real work, helping all these liberated civilizations rebuild and find their place in a free galaxy." Im Hei-rin was already working on new calculations. The quantum cascade created detailed records of every species' original culture and technology. We can help them restore what they lost. "How long will that take?" Captain Yoon Tae-min asked. "Generations," Dr. Oh Sung-jae admitted. "But that's all right. We have time now." Months later, Kang Dae-ho stood in the rebuilt capital of Nexus Prime, watching construction crews from dozens of different species working together to restore the city. The purple sky was clear again, and the crystal towers were rising higher than ever before. "Was this really what you were preparing for?" he asked Nam Hae-won, who had become the human ambassador to the Galactic Reconstruction Council. "Part of it," she said. "We knew that defeating the enemy wouldn't be enough. We had to be ready to help rebuild what came after. 4,000 years of preparation for a war that lasted one day, followed by a reconstruction that will take centuries?" Nam Hye-won smiled. "That's very human thinking. We don't just solve problems, we try to solve them permanently." "And the other species? The ones that were freed from the collective?" "Most of them are grateful. Some are confused. A few are angry that they were trapped for so long. But they're all free now, and that's what matters." Kang Dae-ho thought about the journey that had brought them here, from a desperate distress call to the liberation of an entire galaxy. "When we sent out that emergency beacon, we never imagined it would lead to this." "That's the thing about calling for help," Nam Hae-won said. "You never know who might answer, or what they might be capable of." Above them, ships from hundreds of different civilizations moved through space in peaceful formation. The galaxy was more diverse and vibrant than it had been for millions of years. It would take time to heal all the wounds left by eons of conquest and absorption, but healing had begun. The humans had answered the call for help. But in doing so, they had given the galaxy something much more valuable than rescue. They had given it hope for a future where different species could work together as equals, where diversity was strength rather than weakness, and where no one would ever again have to face the darkness alone. The age of the collective was over. The age of cooperation had begun, and in the vast reaches of space, other civilizations that had been hiding in fear for millennia began to emerge from the shadows, ready to join the growing alliance of free species that would shape the galaxy.